Hi, I'm James Bird. Today we're going to be talking about leaders and asking specifically if the emotional intelligence of those leaders has any bearing on the success or failure of the organization that they're leading. We know that leaders are important. A leader will always emerge. We've seen throughout history when there's a group of people, a leader will emerge. Whether that leader is a governor, a coach, a president, or a king, it doesn't matter. We know that the culture or the personality of that leader will be adopted most of the time by the organization or the group of people that they're leading. We even see in the Bible that the Israelites were at first only governed by judges that God would raise up for a specific time and specific purpose. But even they eventually asked for a king like the nations around them. What we want to see is, does that culture that's created by the personality of the leader translate to success or failure of the organization? This is personally relevant to me because I've been involved in organizations recently where the emotional intelligence of a central figure, a new leader, has come into question. This has been both at my job, at work, a new CEO, and their ability to relate to people that impacted the culture and the morale and within the company, and also at church. A couple of the elders, great men of God, no question about their character, but their ability to relate to members of the congregation has caused some issues that have had to be discussed. Values of those leaders, very important. I like this quote that I'll read. I found during my research. It says, "Great leaders leave their mark by constantly communicating their values and sense of mission. They tirelessly call their people to engage in the cause. They know people are easily distracted by the many pulls of life, so they are continually calling them back to the mission, back to their purpose for being." This is a great statement, whether it's secular or spiritual organization that's being led. And a leader would do well to remember this. As I've thought about that, I defined my own personal values that I thought were important. Here are a few. Hard work at the top of the list. Anything that you do is going to be required. It's going to require hard work. This was instilled in me by my grandfather. Also, integrity. Integrity I define by what you do when no one is watching. Flexibility. This is important for any member of a team. When you're working with a team, you have to be able to take on new responsibility and different roles to make that team successful. Perseverance is there's no substitute for being able to stick with something to the end, seeing it through. Members of the team who have perseverance will contribute to the success of that team. Courage. I think of courage as the ability to not be afraid to try new things. This is also very important in a team. The idea of we do it this way because that's always been done that way can be the death knell of any team. And finally, all of these fall under the umbrella also of faith, knowing that we do the best we can, but in the end, God is in control. The methods I've used here are non-experimental research. I'm not conducting my own research. I'm only looking at data on the emotional intelligence of leaders in secular organizations, then also looking at data on spiritual organizations, comparing the two, trying to see if the data that's much more plentiful on secular organizations will translate to the same kind of results in churches. The purpose here is just to bring into focus for churches, just like secular corporations are starting to appreciate that there's more to selecting a leader than just charisma and intelligence. As a matter of fact, we see a lot of support for this in the research on emotional intelligence in business. We know that open and approachable managers produce employees who are more engaged, and members of a team that are more successful when they care about the success of the whole team. Selfishness does not promote success in teamwork and team environments. When members have no desire to go above and beyond, when a member is only there to do the bare minimum, to draw a paycheck, to whatever that minimum is, then the success of that team will be limited. A special study by Dulowitz in 2005 looked at 3 times of managerial quotients. The emotional intelligence that we're talking about, shown as the emotional quotient, an intelligence quotient, IQ, which we're all familiar with, and the managerial quotient. And shockingly found out that when it came to overall performance, that the emotional quotient made a greater contribution to overall performance than either the intelligence or the managerial quotient. We see in spiritual organizations that this does translate. So all the information that's out there about secular organizations and their leaders, the impact that the leaders' emotional intelligence will have on that organization, it's very much supported that it does translate to spiritual. Current church planning research indicates that the personhood of the lead planner is linked to the survivability, health, and growth of the new church plant. These are measured in metrics. Survivability, of course, is just does it continue to exist, but also in the health, the membership numbers, is it growing or declining? The financial status of the church, the duration of the lead pastor at this church. All these healthy metrics will determine that the personhood of the lead planner is linked to the success of that organization. So we would see that domineering pastors exhibiting hard power over their congregation, forcing their will, which would be a sign of low emotional intelligence. This results in a congregation that's afraid to speak up. And we know that groups operating under these conditions can fail in 6 ways to make good decisions. They can fail to consider all of the alternatives. They can fail to gather additional information when they need it. Fail to re-examine a course of action when it's not working. That can show itself by the leader failing to admit that he was wrong or wanting to push through an idea because he's afraid of seeming weak. We can also see a failure to carefully weigh risks, work out contingency plans, or to a failure to discuss important moral issues. We see that when we have these examples, it results in a weaker process for vetting decisions. It's not good for any organization, and a church is no different. Overall, you're going to have poor decision making, and that's going to be reflected in the health of this organization. So we can conclude, with no surprise, that the data does support the hypothesis that the leader emotional intelligence do translate to spiritual organizations. We can look at the existing corporate and business studies that have been done and feel confident that we can translate that to a high degree of probability to church emotional intelligence leaders. The emotional intelligence of church planners and leaders correlates strongly to the growth and stability of that church. The engagement level of members of any organization, including churches, is a good indicator of culture. And within Christian culture, we know that we should work hard, put others before ourselves, and then trust God with the outcome. These are a few of the key points I found in my research over this paper. It's been my pleasure to present them to you. Hope you enjoy.